My name is Madison Chin, and at 27 years old, I never imagined I'd be standing in the freezing November rain after being thrown out of my family's Thanksgiving dinner. What my status-obsessed parents and siblings didn't know when they showed me the door was that I was worth $85 million. The AI startup I'd built from nothing, the one they dismissed as my little computer hobby, had made me wealthy beyond their comprehension. As I drove away that night, I made a decision that would shatter their world. I would block their access to accounts they didn't even know I was supporting. If you've ever felt underestimated by the people who should believe in you most, this story is for you. The Golden Family. Growing up in Westfield, an affluent Connecticut suburb, our family looked perfect from the outside. Our Tudor-style mansion with its pristine landscaping and luxury cars projected exactly the image my parents craved. My father, David Chin, had built his reputation as a ruthless real estate mogul who measured success purely in dollar signs. With his perfectly styled silver hair and designer suits, he collected business connections like trophies. My mother, Sarah, was the quintessential trophy wife, a former beauty queen turned socialite who orchestrated our family's image with military precision. Charity galas and country club events were her battlefield, and she never lost. In this carefully crafted world, my older brother Ryan flourished as the golden child. 4 years my senior, he was everything my father wanted: star quarterback, Harvard Business School graduate, and now a rising investment banker. Dad beamed with pride at Ryan's every achievement. My younger sister Emma, just 2 years behind me, was mother's perfect creation. With her natural beauty and social grace, she effortlessly collected pageant crowns and modeling contracts. By 19, she'd been featured in fashion magazines and had wealthy suitors lining up. Then there was me, the awkward middle child who preferred coding to cocktail parties. My bedroom wasn't decorated with sports trophies like Ryan's or pageant crowns like Emma's. Instead, it was filled with computer parts, programming books, and science fair medals that no one ever mentioned at family gatherings. "Madison, sweetheart, put down that laptop and join us," my mother would say, her smile tight with disappointment when I'd work on projects during family events. "The Robertson son is visiting from Yale Law School." My father was more direct in his dismissal. When I won the national robotics competition in high school, he barely glanced at my trophy. "That's nice, but will it get you into Wharton?" The next weekend, he missed my technology showcase to attend Ryan's golf tournament. "Your brother is networking with future business leaders," he explained. "That's real-world success." Even at family dinners, the hierarchy was clear. Ryan would be asked detailed questions about market trends, Emma would be praised for her latest modeling gig, and I'd be relegated to passing dishes with the occasional "Madison's doing well in her computer classes" from Mom. I learned early to keep my achievements private. When I taught myself machine learning at 15, I celebrated alone. When my app won a national coding competition, I quietly added the certificate to my collection, never mentioning it at dinner. College and the Great Divide. The family dynamics came into sharp focus during college selection. Ryan had attended Dad's alma mater, Princeton, with a generous donation ensuring his acceptance despite mediocre grades. Emma chose NYU for fashion marketing, where Mom had connections. When I received a full scholarship to MIT for computer science, my parents' reaction was lukewarm at best. "MIT is so technical," my mother grimaced. "What about somewhere more well-rounded? Connections matter more than grades." My father was blunter. "Computer science? What kind of career path is that for a Chun? You could do business or law and actually make something of yourself." Despite their objections, I chose MIT, partly because it was my dream, partly because the scholarship meant independence. While Ryan's education was fully funded and Emma's various endeavors were bankrolled without question, I worked part-time throughout college, determined to stand on my own. Those college years marked my true separation from the family. At MIT, surrounded by fellow innovators who valued intelligence and creativity, I finally found my tribe. My roommate Jessica became the first person to truly support my passion. "You're not just good at this, Madison," she told me after seeing one of my AI projects. "You're revolutionary." My professors noticed too. Dr. Martinez, my advanced algorithms professor, pulled me aside junior year. Chin, your neural network optimization could change everything. Have you considered where you might take this after graduation? I graduated summa cum laude with job offers from Google, Apple, and Microsoft. At my graduation ceremony, my family arrived late and left early for Emma's photo shoot. As we posed for a quick family photo, Dad checked his watch impatiently. Well, at least you finished, he said, scrolling through emails. Now you can look for a proper position. I have contacts at Goldman who might take a meeting. I gathered my courage. Actually, I'm starting my own AI company. The look of confused disappointment on his face would fuel my determination for years. The startup years. Instead of accepting lucrative corporate offers, I moved into a tiny studio apartment in Cambridge. The space barely fit a bed and desk, but the rent was manageable on my savings. This would be headquarters for what I hoped would become my tech empire. My parents' reaction was predictably negative. You're turning down stable employment to do what exactly? Dad demanded during one of our increasingly rare calls. When I explained my vision for revolutionary AI-powered personal assistants, he scoffed. Artificial intelligence? That's science fiction. You'll be fixing computers in 6 months when this fails. Those early days tested every ounce of determination. I worked around the clock, surviving on instant noodles and coffee, coding until my vision blurred. I needed a partner with complementary skills, someone who believed in the vision as much as I did. I found that person in Alex Rodriguez, a brilliant programmer from my MIT network. Unlike my family, Alex immediately grasped the potential. This adaptive learning algorithm is unlike anything I've seen, he said during our first official meeting at a coffee shop we'd later call our first headquarters. You're not just building a virtual assistant, you're creating digital consciousness. Alex became my co-founder and the first person to validate my vision. Together, we officially founded MindBridge AI, working side by side on salvaged desks in my tiny apartment. Our first year was brutal. Rejection after rejection from investors who couldn't see past our youth. One venture capitalist actually laughed at our pitch. Come back when you have some gray hair or a track record. We took consulting gigs to survive, working nights and weekends on our software. There were moments I nearly broke, like when my credit card was declined buying groceries the same day Ryan called to brag about his new Porsche, a bonus gift from his firm. 18 months in, we achieved our breakthrough. Our AI assistant demonstrated 99.2% accuracy in predictive text generation and natural conversation, significantly better than anything on the market. We documented the results and reached out to Dr. Patricia Williams, CTO at Nexus Technologies, a mid-sized software company seeking competitive advantage. Unlike previous contacts, Williams responded within hours. This is exactly what we've been looking for. Can you meet tomorrow? That meeting changed everything. Williams not only purchased our platform for Nexus, but connected us with her network of tech leaders. What you've built isn't just an improvement, she told us as she signed the contract. It's the future of human-computer interaction. With Nexus as our first major client, doors began opening. Over the next year, we expanded from my apartment to a small office, then to larger spaces as we added employees. When TechCrunch featured us in their Startups to Watch issue, I sent a copy to my parents. Dad's response was tepid. Interesting little article. Let me know when you're ready for a real job if this doesn't work out. 3 years after founding MindBridge AI, our client list included Fortune 500 companies, healthcare systems, and government agencies. Our team had grown to 32 people, and we were consistently profitable, rare for a young tech company. Yet even as the business flourished, I maintained a modest lifestyle. I chose a comfortable but unassuming apartment and drove the same reliable Honda from college. Part of me was waiting to see if my family would ever recognize my achievements without external validation. They never did. At family gatherings, my thriving business remained my computer job, always discussed with faint condescension. Madison's still doing her tech thing, Mom would tell relatives before quickly pivoting to Ryan's promotion or Emma's latest modeling contract. The life-changing call. Then came the call that would transform everything. Michael Torres, VP of Acquisitions at Tech Global Corporation, one of the largest AI companies in the world, requested a meeting. "We've been watching MindBridge's development with great interest," he said. "Your conversational AI platform is years ahead of the industry." The meeting lasted 8 hours. By the end, Torres had laid out an acquisition offer, $170 million for MindBridge AI, with retention packages for key team members. Alex and I spent weeks in due diligence consulting lawyers and financial advisors. When we finally signed the deal, the numbers seemed surreal, the kind of success even my status-obsessed family couldn't dismiss. After taxes and honoring agreements with early supporters, Alex and I each walked away with just over $85 million. We celebrated with a quiet dinner, reminiscing about our journey from that tiny apartment to this life-changing moment. "What will you do now?" Alex asked. I considered carefully. "I think I'll keep things mostly the same for now. I want to be strategic about next steps. And honestly, I'm not ready to tell my family yet." Alex understood immediately. "You want to see if they'll ever value what you've built without knowing about the money." Exactly. The moment they knew about the acquisition, everything would change. So I made a fateful decision. I kept the acquisition secret. I invested wisely, donated anonymously to STEM education programs, and continued living modestly. To my family, it appeared I'd simply moved to a consulting role at a larger company. As months passed, I waited for someone to ask meaningful questions about my work or show genuine interest in my life. They never did. Instead, the dismissal continued, setting the stage for the confrontation that had been brewing for 27 years. The secret benefactor. What my family didn't know was that I'd been quietly supporting them financially. My investment advisor had helped me set up various anonymous assistance programs. When Dad's real estate firm hit cash flow problems, mysterious processing errors resulted in overpayments from the bank that covered his shortfalls. When Ryan's investment losses threatened his condo purchase, an anonymous benefactor coincidentally paid off his credit card debt. When Emma's modeling career stalled and her spending habits caught up with her, a clerical error resulted in a substantial tax refund. I even discovered that my parents had been asking me for small loans, $3,000 for country club dues, $5,000 for house repairs, $7,500 for Emma's business venture. None were repaid. All came with the expectation that this was my duty despite being the least successful family member. Through my financial team, I investigated the family's true situation and discovered troubling patterns. Dad's business was over-leveraged on risky developments. My parents had remortgaged their home to maintain their lifestyle. Ryan was deeply in debt from living beyond his means. Emma's influencer career was operating at a loss, sustained by parental subsidies. The Chun family's prosperity was an elaborate facade, cracking under financial strain. Thanksgiving disaster. The annual Chun family Thanksgiving was always a showcase of status and success. This year, I arrived at my parents' estate to find the usual luxury cars filling the driveway, my Honda looking conspicuously out of place. Inside, the house buzzed with pre-dinner activity. Professional caterers arranged appetizers on silver platters while family members performed their annual ritual of competitive storytelling. Ryan held court by the fireplace, describing his latest business deal. The merger closes next quarter. The board practically begged me to lead the integration team, youngest director in the firm's history. Nearby, Emma displayed her engagement ring to a circle of female relatives. She'd recently become engaged to Preston Worthington, heir to a shipping fortune. "The wedding planner who did the Kennedy reception is handling everything," she explained. "Daddy says we can't compromise on an event this important." I moved through the room, receiving the usual condescending greetings. Cousin Jennifer, fresh from announcing her engagement to a plastic surgeon, caught me by the appetizer table. "Madison, still working with computers?" "That's so dedicated of you." She conspicuously displayed her ring. "I heard you're still single. My fiancé has a friend in IT at the hospital, not a doctor, but he seems stable." This pattern continued as I circulated. Uncle Stephen asked if I'd considered an MBA to get a real career started. Aunt Patricia wondered if my company offered good benefits at least, since technical salaries can't be much. When dinner was called, I found my place card in the table's middle section between a dental student and a pharmaceutical sales rep, the middle-class section. As the first course was served, Dad stood for his traditional toast. These speeches typically highlighted family achievements with particular emphasis on recent successes. "Family and friends," he began, raising his crystal wine glass. "Another year of growth for the Chens. I'm grateful for continued success at Chen Development Group despite challenging markets." He praised Ryan's promotion to director and his leadership on major deals. He celebrated Emma's engagement to Preston, calling it exactly the kind of strategic alliance that strengthens families. He acknowledged various relatives' accomplishments: my cousin's medical residency, my uncle's new yacht, my aunt's charity board appointment. He spoke at length about maintaining the Chun legacy of excellence and achievement. I waited for my name, for some acknowledgement of my work or contribution. It never came. As Dad concluded with, "To the continued prosperity of the Chin family, upholding our values of excellence and success," I realized I'd been completely omitted from the family narrative. The slight was so obvious that several relatives glanced at me uncomfortably. Something snapped inside me. A lifetime of patience, suddenly exhausted. I had built a revolutionary company, changed an industry, achieved financial success beyond anyone at this table, all while being treated as the family disappointment. As the main course was served and conversation turned to Ryan's bonus and Emma's wedding budget, I found myself speaking. "I sold my company last year for $170 million. Absolute silence fell over the table. 26 pairs of eyes turned toward me in confusion and disbelief. Dad recovered first, his expression shifting from shock to dismissive amusement. "Madison, this isn't the time for jokes. We're having serious family discussions." "I'm not joking," I replied steadily. MindBridge AI, the artificial intelligence company I co-founded, was acquired by Tech Global Corporation. After taxes and distributions, I personally netted $85 million. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Mom forced a tight smile. "Darling, we know you're doing fine in your technical job. There's no need for exaggeration." Ryan snorted.
"Right.
"Because Silicon Valley is just throwing around 9-figure deals for little AI apps. What did you really get, a company car?" The condescension in his tone, so familiar, somehow hurt more than outright disbelief. I reached for my phone and pulled up my investment portfolio, sliding it toward Dad. "This is my current net worth, excluding real estate and my charitable foundation." The acquisition was reported in the Wall Street Journal, though I kept a low profile. Dad glanced at the screen, his expression freezing as he processed the numbers. For once, David Chun was speechless. That can't be right," he finally managed. "It's not only right, it's conservative," I continued. "I've been living modestly by choice, not necessity. Meanwhile, I've discovered this family's finances aren't as robust as everyone pretends." Gasps erupted around the table. Mom's face had gone pale. Ryan's expression darkened dangerously. "How dare you?" Dad said, his voice low and threatening. "You have no right to discuss private family finances." "I have every right," I countered, "considering I've been anonymously supporting this family for months. Who do you think paid off the mortgage when you hit that cash flow crisis? Or covered Ryan's investment losses? Or funded the mysterious benefactor who saved Emma's failing influencer career?" The silence that followed was deafening. My revelations had cracked the carefully maintained facade of Chin family prosperity. Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. "That's enough," he thundered, slamming his hand on the table. "I will not have you spreading lies and causing discord at my Thanksgiving table." "Dad," Emma interjected uncertainly, "maybe we should listen." "No," he cut her off. "I know my own business. Madison has always needed attention, always felt she had something to prove. This performance crosses every line." He turned to me, years of disappointment hardening his gaze. "Either apologize for this disruption and these false accusations or leave." Looking at my father's unyielding expression, I saw clearly that he would rather lose me than face the truth. My wealth, my success, none of it mattered if it didn't conform to his vision of achievement. I stood slowly, placing my napkin beside my untouched plate. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll go. As I walked toward the door, whispered arguments broke out behind me. Grandma called my name. Emma half rose before Mom pulled her back down. No one else moved to stop me. In the foyer, I collected my coat, hands steady despite the emotional earthquake. As I reached for the door, Dad appeared behind me. You've always been difficult, Madison, he said, controlled but seething. When you're ready to be a proper part of this family and accept your place in it, you can return. I looked at him, really looked at the man who had shaped so much of my self-doubt despite my success, and felt unexpected pity. My place? Dad, I've built something significant on my own terms. I've achieved exactly what you claim to value, but because it didn't happen your way in your industry with your approval, it doesn't count. I opened the door, letting in the cold November air. I hope someday you can be proud of me for who I am, not who you wanted me to be. But I'm done waiting. The reckoning. As I drove away, I made a decision. By morning, my family would understand exactly what they'd done. The anonymous support that had been sustaining their lifestyle was about to disappear. From my car, I called my financial advisor, Jonathan Wells. Despite the holiday, he responded immediately. This is substantial, he said when I explained my decision. You're talking about unwinding multiple support structures. Are you certain? I am, I confirmed. Not as punishment, but as necessity. My family has been living beyond their means while treating me like a failure. I've been enabling that. It needs to stop. Over the next 2 hours, we systematically dismantled the financial safety net I'd created. The mysterious deposits to my parents' accounts would cease. The anonymous fund covering Ryan's debt payments would close. The benefactor supporting Emma's lifestyle would disappear. By midnight, my family's secret support system had been eliminated. They wouldn't immediately understand what had happened, but the effects would become clear within days. It took exactly 3 days for reality to hit. 3 days of ignored calls and increasingly desperate messages. On the 4th day, the audit results I'd commissioned arrived, confirming my suspicions. Dad's business was indeed over-leveraged on failing developments. He'd been borrowing from family members with promises of returns he couldn't deliver, essentially running a family Ponzi scheme. This discovery hardened my resolve. What I'd initially seen as dismissiveness now appeared more sinister. Dad hadn't just undervalued me. He'd potentially been counting on eventually accessing my resources. The texts and voicemails told the story of unfolding chaos. From Mom, "Your father is very upset. Call immediately." Then, "There seems to be some issue with our accounts. Call me." From Ryan, "Whatever game you're playing stops now." Later, "My cards are declining. What did you do?" From Emma, "Mom and Dad are fighting constantly. Please call back." On day 5, Dad's business partner contacted me directly. "Madison, we need to talk. The firm is facing challenges. Richard mentioned you might have resources to help." "Did he explain how I might have come by these resources?" I asked. Hayes hesitated. "He said something about your tech job paying off better than expected." Even now, Dad couldn't acknowledge the truth to his own partner. By week's end, the family chaos had reached fever pitch. Grandma called to say my parents were separated and Dad had moved to a hotel. Emma reported that her wedding venue had called about bounced deposit checks. Ryan's fiancée had apparently broken up with him after discovering his true financial situation. The inevitable family emergency meeting was called for the following Sunday, organized by Aunt Patricia as mediator. I wasn't explicitly invited, having been excommunicated, but Grandma's separate message made clear my presence was expected. I decided to attend, not to gloat, but to establish truth as our foundation going forward. I brought documentation, acquisition papers, financial records, audit findings about Dad's business practices. The atmosphere when I arrived was unlike any previous family gathering. Gone were the carefully curated appetizers and decorative touches. Tension hung in the air like a physical presence. My entrance created an immediate ripple effect. Conversations halted. Mom half rose, then sank back down. Emma rushed toward me with visible relief, while Ryan glowered from across the room. Dad was notably absent, hiding in his study. "You came," Emma said, embracing me warmly. "Everything's falling apart, Madison." Aunt Patricia approached, assuming her mediator role. "We didn't know if you'd join us, given recent events." "I thought it was important to be here," I replied. "Where's Dad?" "In his study," Mom answered hesitantly. "He's reviewing some papers before joining us." After 15 minutes of uncomfortable small talk, Dad finally emerged. The imposing figure I'd always known looked diminished, his usual authority replaced by brittle defensiveness. Our eyes met across the room. For perhaps the first time, he saw me not as his disappointing daughter, but as an equal player in the family drama. "Let's get started," he said. "We have matters to discuss." Aunt Patricia outlined the meeting's purpose in diplomatic terms. "Recent events have created confusion about the family's financial situation. We're here to clarify misunderstandings." Dad spoke next, addressing the room with practiced authority despite his appearance. "I know you have questions about Chin Development Group. I want to assure everyone that despite temporary cash flow issues, the firm remains sound." As relatives began voicing specific concerns about promised investment returns and failed ventures, Dad's composure cracked. He referred vaguely to paperwork errors and administrative issues. Then he played his final card. "Recent family developments may provide an opportunity to accelerate our recovery. It seems Madison has had some financial success. Perhaps now would be the time for her to demonstrate family loyalty." The naked manipulation was breathtaking. Even after everything, he was framing my success as a resource for his rescue. This was my moment. I opened my briefcase and removed the acquisition agreement. "Before we discuss family loyalty," I said steadily, "I think we need clarity about what's actually happening." I handed the document to Aunt Patricia to circulate. "This is the acquisition agreement for Mindbridge AI. As you can see, the sale price was $170 million. My personal share was $85 million. Murmurs spread as the document passed from hand to hand, highlighted figures causing shocked expressions. I produced the audit report. "This is an independent analysis of Chin Development Group, showing the firm has operated at a loss for 3 years, with client investments covering operating expenses and family withdrawals." Dad's face flushed with anger. "You had no right to investigate my business." "Not when it involves family members' investments," I countered. "Not when you've been using Grandma's retirement funds to cover country club memberships." I presented more evidence. Records of anonymous support I'd provided, manipulative loan requests never intended for repayment, documentation of mortgage defaults I'd quietly covered. "For the past year," I explained to the stunned room, "I've been anonymously supporting many of you while being treated as the family failure. I did this because I care about this family, but I can't continue enabling a system built on appearances and deception rather than genuine connection." "So, you're cutting us off as punishment?" Mom interjected. "No," I said gently. "I'm establishing boundaries and reality. I'm happy to help family members who truly need support, Grandma's medical expenses, education costs, emergency assistance. But I won't fund luxury lifestyles or failing business ventures while being treated as worthless." Ryan, uncharacteristically quiet until now, suddenly erupted. "This is rich coming from you. You sit on millions in secret, judging us, playing twisted games. How is that not manipulative?" His question hit closer than I wanted to admit. "You're right," I acknowledged. Keeping my success secret was partly a test, one I desperately wanted this family to pass. I wanted to be valued for who I am, not what I have. That was unfair. This admission shifted the room's atmosphere. My candor introduced vulnerability that felt foreign in the Chun household. Dad, however, wasn't ready to concede. "This performance is dramatic, Madison, but it doesn't change reality. The family business your grandfather built is at risk. Whatever grievances you have about not getting enough attention, surely you don't want to destroy generations of work." His final manipulation attempt, invoking family legacy while placing his failures on my shoulders. The legacy is already destroyed, Dad, I said gently but firmly. You did that when you started using family funds as your personal bank. When you prioritized appearances over truth. I addressed the entire room. I'm willing to help establish a family fund with transparent oversight, not controlled by any single person for legitimate needs. But I'm not writing blank checks, and I'm not investing in businesses built on deception. The next 2 hours were chaotic as family members processed these revelations. Some approached with tearful apologies and sudden recognition of my amazing business acumen. Others huddled with Dad, shooting resentful glances. Emma surprised me by publicly breaking from our parents. Madison's right. This whole family is built on appearances. I don't even love Preston. I just knew he'd make Mom and Dad happy. I'm done living for their approval. By evening's end, the family had fractured into new configurations. Dad remained unrepentant. Several relatives were exploring legal options. Others were processing their own complicity in toxic dynamics. As I prepared to leave, Grandma pulled me aside. Your grandfather would be proud, not because of the money, but because you had courage to speak truth even when it was painful.